What's up, everyone? Cervantes PR1 here, back with another video. So let's talk about Last Generation, man. To wrap things up with Last Generation, my thoughts on it, what I thought could have been done better, etc. So let's talk about the third parties, right? Let's talk about the third parties. I overall think that they released less games throughout Last Generation. Like, for example, Rockstar, the only games that Rockstar made was basically Red Dead Redemption 2. That's it. They did release GTA 5, which was a massive game, a big game. But honestly, man, I think it's pretty pathetic how we used to get a whole lot more games from developers than what we do now. And it seems like, you know, a game like GTA 5 should have had a sequel within the same generation, because GTA 5 was released, what, in October 2013? And like for a whole freaking 7 years, for the entire console like generation, we didn't get a sequel. We didn't get GTA 6. All we got was just Red Dead Redemption 2. So that's just like one example. Like overall, I just felt like developers made less games, and part of that has to do with the high standards nowadays. Making games right now costs a lot of money than they ever have, and I mean, the standards have gone up too, man. Like, developers can no longer just, you know, release half-baked games like that, you know? I mean, it's never been okay, but my point is, games take longer to make, and they're more expensive now than ever. But I don't know, man. I just can't shake this feeling that we got less games. We had less games. I don't know. Just developers weren't able to produce as many games like in the past. And that's just it. Now let's talk about the good stuff, right? Not everything's bad. But that's my kind of like the wrong, not the wrong, but like that's kind of like my main complaint about Last Generation. Another complaint I have about Last Generation is that the shooter genre is dead, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying it's dead like as if there's not people playing shooting games anymore, like first-person shooters, third-person shooters. I'm not saying that. My main complaint is that the shooter genre overall feels like it's dead. Like, Battlefield sucks now. I mean, they released 2142. That game sucks. They released Battlefield 5. Also, that game sucks. Beautiful graphics, though. Gunplay not that bad, but it just feels like the last truly like great first-person shooter that was made was like Battlefield 1. Call of Duty has been... I mean, I've always thought that Call of Duty is trash. A lot of people like it. Hey, it is what it is. It continues to be like the best-selling game. People are Call of Duty fans. I'm not one of them. But the shooter genre feels dead. Like, Halo didn't release a single great game. I tried a little bit of Halo Infinite on my PC. Didn't really do anything for me. Didn't really care. I mean, what else? What else? The shooter genre just completely failed. Titanfall 2 ended up failing. Battlefield is dead. Call of Duty has always been dead to me. Fortnite took over. Apex Legends, freaking, what is that other game that they released? Overwatch. I don't know, man. It's just the shooter genre hasn't been good for a long time, man. The last truly great game that they released that was great, like a great first-person shooter, in my opinion, was Battlefield 4. And even that game was plagued with a lot of issues at launch. A lot of bugs, a lot of issues, a lot of problems. It was hard to play online. Server issues, you name it. That's that. Honestly, the best multiplayer experience I had Last Generation was with Street Fighter V. I played a lot of multiplayer with Street Fighter V. I played that game a lot. Other than that, man, multiplayer-wise, I also played a little bit of The Last of Us Part 1 multiplayer that they released, The Last of Us Remastered. I can't think of anything else that I really played extensively, like online. Everything else sucked. To me, it was all about the single player, Last Generation. Sony with their single player experiences, I mean, they just kicked ass. It's just my opinion, man. And single players have shown to be better than multiplayer games, man. It's just, I don't know. Multiplayer games just don't feel the same anymore, man. Something's off. Uncharted 4 multiplayer wasn't that great. Played it for a little bit, wasn't that great. Overall, just multiplayer kind of wasn't that great last generation, man. Just keeping it real. Let's talk about the good stuff in the industry, though. Let's talk about what the third parties were doing. EA didn't really make any great games. I mean, they made the last great game they made was Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1 was actually pretty solid, not gonna lie. Other than that, man, Ubisoft, haven't bought a single Ubisoft game last like the entire generation, man. Crazy. A lot of people say that Assassin's Creed Black Flag was awesome. I don't think so, really. I think it was pretty average. Not a terrible game, but just not great at all. Capcom was the main highlight of last generation, man. They released Resident Evil 2, which was fantastic. Resident Evil 3, which was fantastic. They also released Devil May Cry 5. Awesome game as well. Street Fighter 5, of course, kicked ass. Liked it a lot. Had a little bit of problems in the beginning with the lack of story mode and all that, but they added that later on, and to me, it became a great game. And speaking of that, man, I can't shake the feeling that like that's another disappointment, because it's like we got Street Fighter 5 and Tekken 7, and all they did was just release DLC, and games are becoming very service-like right now. That's one of the issues with the with last generation. But one thing that I think that they did good was definitely coming up with those remakes, man. I like how they remade Final Fantasy VII. I like how they remade Resident Evil 2 and 3. How they're remaking Resident Evil 4. Capcom was on fire last generation. The only game that they really truly failed on was definitely, I would say, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which was a complete disappointment. But everything else, man, the Monster Hunter world, everything, man, Capcom has been the best third-party developer in the industry. For sure. And, of course, Namco Bandai as well. But other than that, man, EA, Activision. Oh, Activision, I'll give them props for releasing Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. I'll give them props for that. But other than that, man, I don't know. The industry just hasn't been doing all that hot, in my opinion. It's just been Sony, Nintendo, and Capcom. And Namco Bandai. That's it. That's pretty much been it. But not a terrible generation, man. I did enjoy quite a few games out there, man. But I do like how they started remaking some classic. And we're seeing that influence right now with Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil 4. They just remade Dead Space. Dead Space looks cool, man. When that game goes on sale on Steam, I'm definitely picking it up for sure. Yeah, man, they're remaking games. Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core remake, cool. I like remakes because they kind of show that old school style games can become successful, and that's what I like. That's it, man. Have a good one, guys.